This doesn't work? Okay.
No. So I have two months.
So ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Remind you to put the phones on silent.
Yeah, phones are silent. Try to be quiet. The soul, when it comes into the world, it comes in and dresses up as many parts. And we experience those parts all together. We don't realize the parts. And then there's chaos. And then the spirit has to start making sense of what's happening to it in order to return to its original beginning point. But if it does, it returns much richer. It returns now as a king, because if it returns, it means that it mastered all the forces that have been activated by the environment, by the circumstances. So if the spirit is to return to its original power, it would mean that it somehow learned to master all these forces and to know them, to know how they operate, to know how to calm them down, to know what motivates them. And so that spirit, when the spirit returns, that spirit is called the husband of the soul. And this is not the soul, the intelligence. This is, in English, they only have one word, soul. But in Hebrew, they have nefesh, which is the part of the soul that resides in the blood, that perceives the body. And they have the word neshama. Neshama means the intelligence that built the body, the intelligence that's trying to think within the body, if it can manage to communicate with itself accurately. And so the nefesh that's in the body, that's part of the soul. It's the part of the soul that dresses up in order to perceive the body, and it resides within the blood. The husband of that nefesh is the ruach. The ruach is what we experience as the dibur, the emotions. That dimension is the husband from this context. And then in this context, it means it receives from. But when we say that something receives from something in the spiritual realms, it means that everything that will happen within a relationship between humans is going to be an example of how do these two forces interact. So if within the nefesh we're saying there are two spiritual sides, one is going to dress up as the body in order to perceive the body, and one is going to dress up as speech and emotion. So these two parts of the soul are going to interact with each other like partners, like, hopefully, in the best case scenario, lovers. This relationship can only succeed when the collective is cooperating in order to make it succeed. The spirit, the one that speaks and feels, he belongs to the collective. He doesn't have control over himself. Other people control him just as well, because it's not like the part that lives in the body, that part of the soul is yours. It's how your body feels, that's how it reacts. It doesn't know anything else. But this part, the husband, he interacts with the world. He doesn't have a choice to say, well, this is how I know. Everything, the whole speech, the whole language, all the interactions, all the activations of the emotions he's getting from the outside. This is instructions that he is downloading from the environment. This part connects him to the collective. And so it's like a husband and a wife. The husband goes out and interacts with the collective, and the wife is home, and she makes with whatever the husband brings home the best that she can. But what happens when the environment is contaminated spiritually? There's no desire for the human soul to succeed, and people are even blocking each other from succeeding. People are more concerned, is it me, is it him? How much does he have and how much does the other one have? So then there's no room for the spirit, for the speaker, for the one that feels, to be healthy. And what happens? He leaves. The husband runs away. And then the soul is alone. She doesn't have who should help her. She doesn't have any guidance. She doesn't know what's right and what's wrong. She can't feel. She doesn't have access to the truth, to her own truth. Yeah. Maybe we should get that away from here.
Where is it? It's a massive centipede.
Okay.
Wow, kol hakavod.
No.
Wow, that's gutsy.
And so when the husband leaves, the wife is left alone. The wife doesn't have what she desires, what she needs. She doesn't feel fulfilled. She can't create the right children. What are the right children? The right actions, the right speech, the right thoughts. She feels lost. She knows she's lost. She just doesn't know to put the finger on what's the problem, because what do you mean? I am the soul. What do you mean the soul is not here? But I am the soul. Am I not the soul? Who am I? There are parts of the soul that are acting, that are present, and there are parts of the soul that are not being activated. Why? Because it would be too painful. It would be too much to experience if the soul was to be present. If the full intelligence was to be activated, it would be too hard to contain. And so the parts that cannot handle the situation, they have to leave. But that means there's less soul. And this is what the world has lost by the Churban. We lost the husband. We lost the one who can speak and make sense. We lost the one who can feel and know what's right. And so everybody's quoting what it says here and what it says there, and you read this book and you read that book, but nobody's understood the heart of what it's trying to convey. Nobody's feeling and speaking in a way that's actually bringing some relief to the part that dwells within. This is the point of the speech, isn't it? We're talking to the ones who can listen. Are we helping the ones that can listen? Are they doing better after we spoke to them? And so we lost the dibur. Every golus means we lose the dibur. The dibur is the husband. And then the dwelling of the soul is contaminated. The dwelling place where she is supposed to feel home is no longer available. The speech is no longer accurate. And so this is why it starts. The Ba'echa, we say, Echa yashva badad, ha'ir rabo si aham, ha'isa ki almano. The city, which is the human heart, and the entire organism, within which dwell all these amazing forces when the husband is present. But when the husband is not present, it's not pleasant to be there. It doesn't feel right. She feels alone. She feels like she's been forsaken. What does it mean, like almana, alone? Like a widow. A widow is not really alone. A widow can have children. A widow can have friends, just like everybody else. Many people come to see her, but nobody really sees her. We're all alone over here. What do you mean? We're all sitting here together. We're not alone. Oh, we're alone. Nobody can see you. We're too busy. We're not here. And so that's what happened by the Churban. By the Churban, we all became alone. It doesn't matter how many of us are together. We're all still alone. Because we don't have our husband. We don't have our divine inspiration. We don't have the one that understands what's taking place so that we can interact with it accurately. And so humanity is like a widow. waiting for her husband to return. Mashiach is the messenger. Eliyahu is the messenger that comes before. But the returning has to happen in the individual heart. There's no other place that it will return. For each one, if he's anticipating a return, the place where the return will happen is in their heart. But the heart has to be in the right condition to receive what's returning. The heart has to not offend the intelligence when it returns. If the heart is very crooked, if the heart is making peace with the way the world is, then when the intelligence returns, it doesn't feel at home again. The cycle continues. And so we are preparing a home. Bilvovi Mishkan Evne. I'm preparing a home for whom? For myself, but not the self that's here now. Another one. One that left. One that I'm waiting should return. And when he returns, I want him to be very happy with what he finds. So I'm preparing for him something that so when he returns, he will be happy. And so there's a certain loneliness. There's a loneliness within humanity that we can't really get to. Most people are too busy. They don't notice the real nature, but there's something we can't get to because we're not calm enough. We're not really fully here. We've forgotten what it was like. We've forgotten some of the parts that were active when we were little. We've forgotten them throughout the years. We were too concerned with other things. Rabosi bagoyim, sarosi bamdino soiselamas. When the heart is in the right condition, she feeds the entire body. Everybody gets their sustenance. Everything works properly. And then, when she is heavy, then suddenly all the body parts can try and they can't lift her up. The heaviness of the heart is something that makes everything heavy. Because this power that she has, that she is in charge, becomes a burden when she is not inspired. When she loses inspiration, she loses access to herself. And then she becomes a burden. Bochoi tifke balaylo, vidimoso alechyo. She cries in the night, her tears on her cheek. En la menacha mikolo aveo. There's nobody that can appease her soul from all her lovers. Kol re'eu bagduba. All her friends have revolted against her. Hoyu la la'oivim. They became her enemies. And so the crying happens at night. Night means that there's no clarity about what's taking place. That's when the heart is the most in despair. When the heart knows that something is taking place, then it creates the reserves in order to go through whatever it is that's taking place. But when it cannot understand what's taking place, then it feels the most lost. Then it's the weakest. And so she cries in the night. This is the exile. The exile is the night for the human soul. This is why we start with the night and then day, because look at the facts. We're at the night and then will come the day. Those who think that now is the day, then they're really living in the darkness. They've really lost sight of what's taking place. And so she cries in the night. Her tears are on her cheek. tears come when the soul gets into conflict with reality. And so the soul has a part that represents reality. The soul has a part that is reality. That part, that's the special part. That's the chelik el hamima. But the soul has a part that assumes, imagines what is reality. And then the soul has a part that can decide to violate what reality is really saying, and we can follow different leads, we can follow different nerves, we can follow all kinds of paths to how we make decisions about how to manifest the soul. And so when there is a conflict between what the soul is doing and reality, the result, the tension, when it finally leaves the body, is going to come out in tears. And so she's crying, and she has her tears on her cheek. Ein lo menachem, she has nobody to appease her. This is one of the most difficult curses that we have when we're in exile, is that in any way that you will think, there really is no way for you to realize what is the truth over here. There really is no truth in what's taking place, because everybody's doing things out of beliefs that they don't fully understand. They're afraid to question too far, but they don't fully understand what is the purpose and what is the benefit. And so the soul is not appeased. The soul, who is the intelligence, who came into the world and says, explain to me what it is that's happening, that soul can never be relieved. As long as there's exile, it means that that truth that relieves the soul is not available. That's been hidden. And so the thirst of the soul to know the truth cannot be relieved in exile. That's why it says, En la menachem, mikol aveh, from all her lovers, from all the different wisdoms that she might learn, that will give her more access to life, but they cannot really appease the soul because they don't contain the ultimate truth. They don't contain the reason of why it is the way that it is. All her friends turned against her. All her friends have forsaken her, and they've become her enemies. Who? All the different body parts that are working with the heart in the good times, and now that there's frustration in the body, and suddenly everybody is working against everybody. This one only wants to eat, and this one only wants to rest, and this one only wants to be busy with this or with that. And all the different functions, the internal functions of the body, are not cooperating with the heart. They're not looking for the ultimate truth. And so when there's no cooperation, that's when the heart finds suddenly that all her friends have turned against her. Golsa Yehuda me'oini imirov avoida hi yashvu bagoyim le'matza menoach karetzfeus higio ben hamitzorim. So Yehuda represents the lion that resides within the heart when the heart is healthy. When the heart's not healthy, it's called Golsa Yehuda. Also, when they sold Yosef, when the Shvatim sold Yosef to Mitzrayim, then it says Vayered Yehuda me'echad. He went down. Yehuda lost his position. And so like this, the organs, they choose whether the heart is doing a good enough job that he is to be in charge and we should all listen to him, or the heart has failed in his mission and therefore everybody can revolt and do whatever they want. And so here, by the Chorban, the heart lost her position as the leader of the organs. They no longer trusted her leadership. They said, look, we listened to you and this is what happened. Now everybody do what they want. And so all the ones who are chasing her suddenly are catching up with her. Why? She lost all her strength. She lost all her power. There's no one looking out for her anymore. The ultimate punishment that we receive by the Chorban Habayis is not that we lost the Beis Hamikdash. It's that we lost the truth. That even if we want to do it right, we don't know how. That's the biggest punishment. Everything else is replaceable. That's unreplaceable. Living a life without knowing is unreplaceable. And so it's on us to turn towards Him authentically. He's always willing to turn a new page, but we have to be authentic when we come to Him. We can't play any of the games we play with people, and even more important, the games we play with ourselves. None of that works. No games. When there's no games, the truth becomes present pretty quickly. Games are ways of avoiding the truth. Games are crooked. We were designed straight, but then we learned how to play many different games. All day we're playing different games designed by different people. It's all games. It doesn't teach you about the ultimate truth. The ultimate truth teaches you how to win in all games. A little bit more of your soul and you can solve all problems. A little bit more intelligence, a little bit more cooperation of the lion inside, and everything is going in the right direction. But then, if things are not in order, then if we give the wrong advice to the organs, then eventually the lion will not be in charge. The lion will fall, and that's exactly what happened to Klal Yisrael. That the Melech Yehuda, which represents the lion in each generation, they had a king that was from the Zerah David that represented the lion, and then the lion fell, and that represented that the world has lost its heart. Everything that's going to happen after now, don't count that as any indication of who God is or what the world is or how life is supposed to be. Nothing. It has nothing to do with that. There's something else happening here. There's a detour. There's a detour that happened because humanity chose a detour. Why was it allowed? How can it be allowed? When we'll be big enough, they'll tell us. But it was allowed. We can make peace with it. It already happened, and now the time is for us to come from here forward. Humanity was allowed to do what they did for the last few thousand years. How? Why? We can't understand, but they were allowed. We're also allowed. We're allowed to do much, much better than we're doing. We're totally allowed. If we do better, no one will stop us. The opposite is true. If we do better, the angels will help us. The same angels who today are doing our service, taking us from place to place and listening to the basic commands that we're giving. They're moving our hands and moving our feet. There's a lot more that they can do. And even the things they're already doing, there's different ways of how it can feel when they do it. There's different ways that they can do it as far as how we're consuming our energy and where we're spending our energy, and what it's doing for our future body and our future spirit, and what it's making available to us. And when we have the right vessel, when the blood is pure enough, immediately the husband returns. The husband wants nothing more than to return. The husband cries that he can't return. There's a force that wants to dwell in us, that cries because we are not ready for him. And that force knows us. He knows our emotions. He knows our speech. He knows all 70 languages. So when we cry about losing wisdom, losing knowledge, losing understanding. We have the thing itself. We have it. But do we really have it? We have life, but are we really alive? And so we can choose to say, no, this is life, make peace with it, it's good enough, enjoy it for what it's worth. But that's not our belief. We believe that that offends the soul. We believe that no, we would rather give away and make life now feel worse, just so we can remember that it's supposed to be better, much better. Otherwise, we're going to forget them. We're going to think that this is what it is. If this is what it is, it's not worth it. It's something else entirely. To connect to that something else, we cry and we remember the pain. If one feels the grief, he is going to see when the time comes to rejoice. But if we don't feel, if it's not serious to us, if it's now I'll have the fun I can have now and then I'll have the fun I can have then, well, if it's not real, then there won't be that much fun then. Because it's real. The pain is real. It's not a story. It's something that's happening now. The human hearts are in a condition that's not acceptable to the one who created them. We might say, okay, I'm okay with it. He's not okay with it. If you're okay with it, there's something wrong with you. It's not okay. Not even close. And we want to remember that. We're willing to give from ourselves. We're willing to give from our blood to remember that it's supposed to be different. Very, 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 very different. And only because it's very different, that's why it was created. We have to remember that in order not to offend the soul. The soul will never return. If we tell it, this is what it is, make peace with it. The soul will never return to something like this. The soul is just going to go deeper into a slumber. Don't wake me up. I don't want to be there. And so the right speech brings back the right spirit. A sefer is a spirit. There are spirits that are alive in these words. There are spirits that were ingrained in these words, in the letters, in the syllables. This is all human desire that's expressing itself. And here human desire was offended so deeply that the words that came out were of pain. A spirit that's in tremendous suffering is being documented within the letters and the words. And this spirit explains why we are in the condition we are in. It explains why life doesn't feel the way that life is supposed to feel. This is the biggest kindness that you can give to a person who is not well, is to explain to him that he's not well and how he's not well. Because then from there, the soul starts to direct its power in order to gain the right healing, in order to get back to itself. And so here we have many instances where it's quite clear that we're talking about the spiritual and the wisdom that's being lost. And one of them is the pasuk that says b'machshakim u'shivani, and Chazal tell us that means the way the Torah is being given over. That in itself is the darkness that we are suffering, because we were given the bottom line. without being given the entire explanation. We were given all the details without being given the principles. And so in order to be able to go backwards from all the details to understand the principles, we need the divine spirit. Nobody else will know in which direction to calculate, like why would it be this way? And the divine spirit requires accurate attributes. The attributes, the ones that activate our heart, the attributes the ones that cause us to be attracted to things and to repel things, those attributes need to be accurate in order for the divine spirit to reside, in order for the truth to reveal itself accurately. If we have the attributes of the Creator, then everywhere we look we will see the wisdom of the Creator. But if we have the attributes that are going against the will of the Creator somehow, so then how will these attributes ever be able to perceive what the Creator is trying to demonstrate? It's the attributes that are looking. It's through these attributes that we are looking. And so let's say if we don't have enough compassion, then we might think, looking at the world, that the Creator doesn't have compassion. And the only thing that will convince us that He does is if we have compassion. There's no other way to convince, because logically there's no argument. And so it's not a logical argument, it's an emotional argument. It's my heart knows that the one who made me is not that way. Okay, based on what does it know that? How does it reconcile? And this is why most people right away will ask about the Holocaust. That's the place where the heart is not ready to go and to say, yes, even here He has compassion, He knows what He's doing. Because He is so much bigger than we are. We are so much bigger than we are. When we are looking at it from what we think a human being is, it can never be justified. But a human being is not that. Based on what a human being really is, of course it's justified, otherwise it wouldn't be. And this has to do with how reality really works. The Creator will never change His design for anyone, not even for King Solomon. The design is the design and it's perfect, and we are going to master it. We are going to conform one way or another with this design, because this design is the ultimate perfection. It will feel so good, it will answer all our questions. And so any type of good that we're trying to achieve that's not that, that becomes a bad. It's very hard for the soul to come to terms with the fact that we are in the situation we are in. Most people, even if they want to start processing what's taking place, they don't have enough time, enough focus to be able to come to terms with what's really taking place. But this is where the greatness of a person is measured. It's not based on his actions. It's not even based on his speech. His speech will be a result of how much has he reconciled with what's really taking place without trying to run from it and hide from it. Because only then will his organs be properly tuned so that he can respond to reality, which is ultimately his task. The one who is going to save us is going to be the one who is going to allow his organs to react accurately to the situation. That's what humanity has been waiting for. And that means that we have to process something that from our mindset is almost impossible to process, because we look at pain as a demonstration of cruelty. And when someone chooses pain over pleasure, that is cruelty. That's the definition of cruelty. And yet, because all these concepts are within the experience of humanity, an experience that humanity is causing for humanity, with a language that humanity created, and so there are reasons why things are the way that they are. There was ill intention in the design of the tools that we are using day in and day out to develop our spirits. And so as a result, the spirits will not be accurate. But it's not because the design is somehow malfunctioning. It's not because there's a weakness in the design against us in any way. It's because humanity has not yet developed the intelligence to know how to protect itself from itself, the other members of itself, and also itself, the different parts of the spirit, the way the spirit dresses up. And so the spirit tortures itself because it doesn't know how to get along yet. It hasn't learned to really master all the different portions of itself that get manifested within the awareness. Let's see some psukim over here. It says over here in the Perik base, Pasuk Yudalit. It says, Nevi'aich chazu lach shav v'sofel v'lo gilu al avoinech l'hoshiv shevisech. Your prophets would tell you the wrong stories, and they didn't really reveal to you where you are crooked. And so the spirits get designed in accordance with speech, but who is the highest speaker within our soul? Who is the highest authority speech within our soul? Everybody has their choices. They have an order of priority. Who is more authoritative with their speech? So that if they say so, it's probably so, it must be so. You have to listen to it. You're not allowed to doubt it. Every person has their own way of categorizing these things. But what happens when those who are in charge of speech are abusing speech? All the people under them will abuse speech, of course. What do they know? So the prophets are the leaders of speech. When the leaders of speech have lost access to the heart, that's called echad b'peh v'echad b'lev. Echad b'peh v'echad b'lev doesn't always mean that the person intends to lie. Sometimes echad b'peh v'echad b'lev just means the person doesn't even know what's in his heart. His brain's just talking. The organism has been trained that in order to speak, you use the brain. You don't have to consult the heart. And so then, it's echad b'peh and echad b'lev. Even if he thinks he really means what he says, but he doesn't feel that way. If his heart would feel it, then, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I should have said that differently. And so if the leaders don't have sensitivity, then the speech is not sensitive. If the speech is not sensitive, everybody is suffering. The human heart becomes invisible. It just gets poked and beaten, and it's like, what are you complaining about? What's the problem? Where's the issue? This? Oh, everybody. Yeah, everybody's in bad shape because of it. And so it's all about the leadership. It's all about the choices that they make within their organism, within the different organs, how they're going to choose to follow. Who are they following? What's their priority? What comes first? What's the dibur that is holy to them? What does it mean to them? You can't simply say the Torah, because the Torah can mean anything. It all depends on the heart that's interpreting it. So it's a heart, it's a human being. It's not Torah, it's never Torah. It's always a human being. Someone who lives from Svarim, then it's his own heart. But it's never Svarim, because Svarim could mean anything. Like, even for yourself, you look at a sefer a few years after, and you know that a few years ago you didn't understand it this way. And yet you understood something, and you walked away with something. The author of that something was your heart. It was inspired by something else. These leaders, they show you visions that fool you. They fool the soul. Who do they fool? They pretend to be the husband of the soul that dwells within the blood. They're strangers that pretend to be the husband, and she says, oh, finally someone who is taking responsibility, he has authority, here I can follow someone, and then the vision never materializes. It doesn't work that way, really. It's just a story. It's just another one of those. He believes because someone else believed, and therefore he thought that his interpretation of the belief must be identical. That's not how it works. So in order to return, we need to sharpen our spiritual vision. We need to be able to tune in to our soul, to listen to our soul. This is how we wake up the husband. Is we know the husband doesn't want to come back to a crying soul. And so we start listening to the soul and we start doing what she needs. Before you know it, she'll start calling you husband. Because that's the function that's missing. No one's listening to the heart. No one is understanding what she's crying about. She cries because there's a violation. What's the first violation that the heart cries about? The malchus, the tzedek. And there's no justice. The heart gets offended if there's no justice. Why is there no justice in the world? How am I supposed to lean on God if He doesn't know how to balance the justice? Doesn't seem like it's being taken care of. You know why it's not being taken care of? Because a very important component that He designed in order to manifest exact to each situation is the human intelligence. That's been hijacked, unfortunately. And so there's no justice. There really is no justice. Oh, eventually there will be justice, but not here within the bodies. Within the bodies has been hijacked. It's not working according to plan. It's offline. The planet has gone rogue. And so there's no justice. Justice is a universal principle. The whole universe runs on justice. Here, there's no justice right now. Tzedek mishpat mechoin kisecho. Justice and the appropriate intelligence to know how to use the attributes. That's mishpat. Mishpat is knowing, having the right das, having the right intelligence to know when to use each attribute. Tzedek and mishpat, justice, and using the attributes right. Mechoin kisecha, these are what create a base for the throne of the divine. No justice, how can the spirit return? We want to make it angry? It already got angry, that's why it left. It was so angry that if it wouldn't leave, it would hurt us. It's better that it left. It left out of compassion so it doesn't destroy our bodies. But if we want it to return, there has to be justice. Justice means good for good, bad for bad. That's justice. Someone who does good, don't do him bad. Someone who does bad, don't try to be nice. Don't be extra nice. Someone does bad, they should know that they did bad. Otherwise, you're just letting them hurt other people. Oh, it's not my job to fix them. It's not your job to fix them, but it's also not your job to go out of your way and flatter them as if everything's okay. Justice means that you, your heart, knows what's right and knows what's wrong, wants to give strength to the right, those who help, those who make people be in a better place, and doesn't want to help those who are against what's good. Why? Because then there will be less good. It's not up to us. This is something bigger. This has to do with someone who wants to live here. Before we came to the world and after we leave, he wants to live here. It's not our choice to say, oh, this feels nice, this feels easy, and this, oh, it's not me, it's not up to me. It's not up to you to go and go into combat, but it's up to you not to support something that you believe is not right. This is all part of justice. Today in the world, it's more about, if they're my friend, so what can I do? This is how they are. And if they're not my friend, so what can I do? I don't know them. No. If they're good, become their friend. If they're not good, don't be their friend. Because in the spirit world, there are only the facts. There are no excuses. It's just how it is. And then the good go to one destiny, the others go to another destiny, and everybody that you interact with and everybody that you support and everybody that you are somehow having an influence on are also becoming part of your spirit. That's just the spiritual nature of how life works. This is why it said that in these times when the truth is hidden and people are so conflicted with reality, if one wants to find his soul, he has to be midboded. He has to somehow leave society in order to go and be by himself in seclusion in order to discover the truth. But for most of us, that's not an option. And so the seclusion has to be internally, that we know what's right and what's wrong, and we take God extremely seriously. He certainly takes us extremely seriously. He takes us so seriously that if we misbehave, there are consequences. If we don't get it, if we're not attached to the true message, then the result is that we don't have full access to the spirit. We're not fully alive. We're like a widow, being told wrong information, running after the wrong excitement, something that doesn't last, something that doesn't really inspire the soul, something that doesn't awaken the one that left us. It says in Perek Hey, Pasuk Zayin, Aveseinu chotu veinam, v'anachnu aveseim savalnu. Our parents, they sinned and they're gone, and we are carrying their sins. And so this seems to be some type of a complaint. But the nature of how we receive life is that we receive life based on the conditions of who we receive it. We don't have absolute access to life. We have access to a specific branch of life. We received life from somewhere. That somewhere is who we owe our life to. That's why it says, it doesn't say that your father is smart, your father knows what he's saying. Probably not. But you should respect him because he is not what he is saying. He's not even what he's doing. He is a branch of the tree of life, and you received life from there. You owe life to that. He can also talk, happens to be, but that's not really what you received life from. You received life from where he is alive, from where his soul is attached to the divine. From there you received life. And so the price that you're going to pay for your life is the conditions that your parents are going to put you into. If you climb out of those conditions, if you return, then you've paid the price, then your life is yours. If you can't figure out how to overcome those conditions, then you've never really received life. It was an attempt to give you life. It didn't manage to fulfill itself. It didn't manifest. Why? Because you received it with the klippa, you received it with the peel, and you never managed to peel it off. You never managed to get to the fruit. And so this goes back again to the Vayeher Vayevoker, the same way as the big world. The same way as the big world, humanity is messed up and they will have to find their way and then they will be able to eat the fruit. The same way in the small world, when you come into the world, you come into a messed up place. And then from that place, you will have to find your way out if you are going to succeed as a human being. Slaves are in charge. The people that are making the laws, they themselves don't know how to live. I wouldn't want to live their life, so why are they making my laws? If someone's making my laws, it means I want to be like him. Otherwise, he's taking me into his reality. His nefesh is going to decide things, and my nefesh is going to have to comply. So what happens when he himself doesn't know what a nefesh really wants? Then it's a slave that became a master. He himself doesn't know, and he's going to dictate to others. But we have no relief. We have no liberation. Why? Because who is going to give us the true master that can compete with his slave and show him that he's a slave? Where's that one? That's what we're missing. And so the slaves are in charge, and there's no one to come and liberate us. Hey, people, are you guys insane? בנפשנו נו ולחמנו מפני חרב המדבר. With our souls we bring our bread because of the sword of the desert. And the midbar is always a remes for the medaber. With our souls we bring our bread because of the sword of the speaker. What's the sword of the speaker? His tongue. We run around like scared little rats because we're afraid of the human tongue. And we have what to be afraid of. The human tongue can give us very nice, pleasant chemicals and make us feel amazing. And the human tongue can cut into all our organs and make us feel terrible. They can even make us faint or die. The human tongue is the most powerful tool in the universe. It runs at unimaginable speeds. We don't realize how much movement is involved when we make our sounds. The tongue is one busy player. But we are enslaved to it. We are not the masters of the tongue. The tongue is the master of us. That relationship needs to change if we want the spirit to return. The spirit will have no one that's above the heart, especially not the tongue. The tongue is supposed to be always matching the heart, never violating the heart. And so we give our souls for our survival. That's what the tongue has created, an environment where we come into the world, we get trained with all kinds of half stories and misunderstood representations of God. And then when we finally want to live, we start being busy with our survival, with all our energy. So we have time to eat, to sleep, and take care of our bare minimum. And then we give our soul just to survive. That's the environment we've created. While the trees, they grow, something nature takes care of pretty much. The animals, they give birth, something nature takes care of pretty much. The land was here before we got here, and there was plenty, there's always been plenty. And yet, we are constantly running. You have billions of people constantly running, busy, giving away their life just to survive. And all by the power of speech. No other animal is disburdened because they don't have speech. They don't have the cherv hamedaber. No other animal can be dragged so far away from their nature until they completely forget who they are and what they want. Shovas mesois libeinu. The thing that would make our heart be filled with joy has suddenly stopped working. It's out of order. There's no longer joy in the heart because what makes the heart happy has been taken away. The understanding that the heart needs in order to be appeased has been hidden from it. Nepach le'evel mecholenu. What used to be our source of joy became a source of grief. Physical existence that was the crown jewel of all the worlds suddenly became a burden for those who are experiencing it. Nofla teres reshenu. The crown of our head has fallen. Oynu lonu ki chetonu. Woe is to us, we have been mistaken. Al zeh hayadover libeini. On this, our heart feels pain. Al elech hashchonenu. From this, our eyes are darkened. Dark eyes meaning that we can't see, we can't understand wisdom, we can't know truth. And so our heart is in pain, so it's not sensitive, we can't feel emotions. And our eyes are darkened, we can't see with the brain, we can't see with the eyes of the intelligence, we can't understand. Al har tzion shel shamayim she'olim al chuboy, on the Mount of Zion that's been desecrated and made empty, made hollow. What used to be sacred, human life, that was the most that we have, the most important, the most holy. Everyone understood that this is a very big deal. It became nothing, it became meaningless. It became something you give away just so you can survive, and you don't even know why you're doing it while you're doing it. And so it's been removed from us. Ata Hashem lo'elam teshev, you will remain forever. Kisacha le'der, your throne will keep on passing from generation to generation. This throne is what we receive from the human seed. The human seed has the potential to be a throne for the Holy Spirit. And so from generation to generation, we give over the potential of the divine throne. And on that throne, the divine shall sit when the time will come. Loma lenetzach tishkachenu. Why should you forget us forever? We keep taking care of your throne generation to generation, and why aren't you returning to sit on that throne? Tazveinu lo yerech yomim, you've left us for such long days. Hashivenu Hashem elecha v'neshuva, return us to you, and we shall return. Hashem, chadesh yameinu kekedem, renew our days like the days of old. The days of old is the collective childhood. And the individual exile, we ask, renew us like we were when we were a little child. And on the collective exile, we say, renew us like the days of old. Kimos ma'astonu, if the Spirit was offended by us, if the Spirit didn't feel that we respected Him enough, Katzafta aleinu ad moed, you already gave us so much of your anger. Whatever it is that we offended, we have been offended in return. Now it's time to somehow make peace. So then we say again, Hashivenu Hashem elecha v'neshuva, chadesh yameinu kekedem. This return is something that's going to change the face of the planet. But it's a biological change that not everybody is ready for. The way the body creates energy is something that we learn usually in our younger years. The later we are in life, the more we follow the previous patterns in order to create our energy. It becomes harder and harder to introduce new sources of energy to the organs of the body as they age. And the difference between the righteous and the wicked is which organs do they receive their energy from? Which organs are they listening to? Who are their advisors? Who are their most trusted advisors? And the body has many different organs. As we go up in the body, for the most part, the general rule is the higher you go in the body, the more spiritual is the function. Except the lowest part of the body connects to the highest part of the body, and then that's called Noat Soifa B'Tchilos, and then it starts over. So it goes like a circle. And so the lowest part of the body is by the liver. The reproductive organs already are connected also to the brain. They activate the entire nervous system. But the liver and all the digestive organs are the lowest part of the body. And so the more our trusted advisors are higher up in the hierarchy, the more we are listening to the order of things, the priority that was set by the divine. And so in a healthy world, all of these organs would be properly satisfied. But we are in an unhealthy world. We're in a world of conflict, which means that some organs are going to be sacrificed for other organs. There isn't a situation where all of them are going to be pleased. So some people are going to focus more on their emotional needs, and others on their intellectual needs, and others on their spiritual needs, and others on their physical needs. And sometimes the person is in a situation where their physical needs are really spiritual needs, and when their emotional needs are really spiritual needs. And that has to do with something that is in the heart that only the Creator knows. And so this hierarchy, this order of priority has to somehow come into the right alignment so that the soul can cleanse itself from the areas where it offends reality, it offends its nature, it offends maybe other people's nature. The right world is the world that has the harmony of all the parts. And so if we want the return to happen, the return means that we're going to have healthy organs spiritually. The return means that the conversation within our mind is going to be led by an intention to heal the soul, to heal the individual soul and to heal the collective soul. This is what's going to guide the speech and how it manifests. That the speech should be just, that the speech should be accurate, that we should know how to analyze the problems. We're not smart enough to know the consequences of different violations. But when humanity goes into conflict, there for sure are consequences. We might not know how to put our finger on what's taking place. But for example, if there's a war right now, this war is not over. All the trauma that's happening over there is going to request justice within the collective soul. Justice. Justice. The principle on which everything is based. And that's going to reverberate within the collective soul. And there are going to be consequences for that. And so until the world heals, until we have someone that can bring peace amongst all the different nations, all the different factions, all the different parts and pieces of humanity, all the different sparks of the collective soul, as long as there isn't going to be peace, it's not just what's going wrong, it's the consequences of what's going wrong. That's the concern, that's the cry, that's the scream. People are screaming from their graves. People were screaming even before they got to their grave by giving their life for beliefs and for understandings that their soul knew. Something inside of them was convinced that that is the real truth. They were willing to leave the world, depart from the world, unless they can live that truth. That shows a level of conviction. And that's part of the design. Part of the design is that we are here and we can't really connect in any way to what's beyond us because we don't have the tools. That's the meaning of being in a physical body, is that we don't have the capacity. Not because we're not capable. Of course we're capable. If not for the body, immediately we would know the whole truth. Our nature is to know the truth. Our body is withholding from us our nature so that we can experience through time and space. And so the soul is in a whole different dimension. The soul is much more powerful than that. And our goal is to bring her home, to give her power, to have her return. Because then all our problems will be solved. We won't have to carry anymore. When the husband comes home, the woman doesn't feel like she's carrying. She's being carried. It feels good enough that it happens on its own. And then we can feel what it's like to be us. We've never tasted what it's like to be us. Those who tasted a little, they wanted life enough that they would live for 900 years. Nobody has really tasted it. If anybody will taste it, he will stay alive forever. That's why it was kept from us. That nobody can taste the Chaim. Hashem had to hide from Adam Rishon the Chaim, because if he would eat from the Chaim, he would want life so much that he would never die. And he was already damaged, so it would be a problem. If we knew the truth, then nothing can possibly stand in our way. We would be able to digest the entire pain of the whole world. That's how much desire there is in the truth. That's how much desire is required in order to create a world like this. If there's any less desire, the project can go out for manifestation. And we see that the project did go out for manifestation somehow. Went through all the approvals. And it's taking place. So now if we're for the project, we can help this project get to its right destination. By being good, by representing good. Good means what's good for the one who dwells within the human hearts. That's good. We have to know him. We have to know what that means. Doesn't mean what we think is good for the one who dwells in the human heart necessarily. But if it's really good for him, then it's good. And that good is going to return in a way that we're going to be laughing about pain. That's cruel unless it's very, very good. So that's what gives us the strength to continue, is knowing. If we can't have it yet, we can know. And so that's why we commemorate. That's why we cry. That's why we remember. So now that we've remembered, may He remember us. May it happen now.